March is Endometriosis Awareness Month, so today we're going to talk about that. Endometriosis is a disease in which endometrium-like tissue grows outside of the uterus. This can cause adhesions, scars all around the pelvic area, and it has even been found in some people in the lungs and in the brain. The symptoms of this condition include heavy bleeding, intense pain in the pelvic area, especially during your period, pain during sex, pain during urination or passing stool, and it can even cause infertility. The cause of endometriosis is unknown. At the moment, there are only theories available. Also, there is no cure. There's only pain management, which would be painkillers. Some people do manage endometriosis by eating an anti-inflammatory diet. This condition affects about 10% of people who have a uterus, and it takes an average of 10 years to diagnose. In my case, it was 20. This is my story with endometriosis and how I was finally diagnosed. My first period started when I was almost 12, and at the beginning it was already painful and it was already a lot of bleeding. As a matter of fact, I remember once when I was about 12, I was still in elementary school. I would soak through my clothes and I would even stain the chairs. I remember this incident very clearly because when I saw the blood on my chair, I ran away. I ran away from the class because I was so mortified and so humiliated by what had happened. And I hid in the bathroom until I felt that I couldn't hide anymore, that I really needed to go back to class. And one of my classmates, a girl, had wiped off my chair for me, and she told me, don't worry about it. The sisterhood that I felt with her, and she wasn't even someone whom I spoke to often, but I have never forgotten that gesture. As the years went by, my symptoms worsened. The first big bad symptom that happened, as if the bleeding wasn't bad enough, happened when I was around 14. I woke up one day and I had intense pain in my stomach, in my abdomen. I was nauseous, I was vomiting, I had diarrhea, I was very dizzy, I could barely walk, and I was practically delirious with pain. So my parent called the doctors and they came over to my house to see if I had appendicitis, and the doctor he checked me and he turned to my parent and said, this is her period. I hadn't started it right then, so I told him that it cannot be my period, I don't have it. And he said, no, it's gonna come today. For some reason, your body is pushing as though it was pushing out a baby. That's literally what he said, that I was having labor pain, which to a 14-year-old was mind-blowing. I cannot really attest to that because I haven't given birth, but the words that he said, I have not been able to forget. With time, within a few hours, the pain did go down and I did feel better. And I thought, okay, that's that. Hopefully that will never happen again. Spoiler alert, it happened again. It happened maybe once every 2 or 3 years per average. When I was younger, it happened even more than that. It happened once a year, that I would be completely unable to move. I would just be in so much pain. My whole body was just breaking. And we would call the doctors, and some would send me to a hospital. Some would tell me to just take some painkillers and wait it out. And this was basically what happened my whole life. Sometimes I would call the emergency number and they would tell me to just take some painkillers, wait it out. Because the moment I told them, this is my period, that it's hurting me this much, they would just say to me, wait it out. Pain is normal. You don't need an ambulance. And perhaps I didn't need an ambulance, but what I did need was medical help. Because the times that I did manage to get a doctor to check me out in the hospital, they would do an ultrasound and they would say, yeah, this is your period. Which I already knew, but they would give me some painkillers and send me off my way. Once I remember calling the emergency number because again I was having an intense flare-up. I was barely thinking straight. So the paramedics, they came over. They checked me out. They saw that I was really, really sick. I could not lift my head. I was so dizzy. It felt as though I didn't have any blood. Like my face, the feeling around my face was gone. I could touch my cheeks and I wouldn't be able to feel it. It was a very bizarre feeling. And they brought me to the hospital. They even put the sirens on because they said, we need to check you out. You need a doctor right now. And they wheeled me in a wheelchair. And as they were wheeling me down a corridor, a nurse came out and she looked at me. And perhaps she thought that I couldn't speak Spanish because I'm Asian. But she turned to the paramedics and she said,
"You wasted an ambulance for this?"
This wasn't the first time a medical professional had completely dismissed my pain. But every time they did it, it hurt. This is something that you don't get used to. Not being believed is not something that you can get used to. Eventually, the years went by. When I wasn't having these peak reactions of pain, I would just be exhausted and in pain. I was kind of able to manage it with over-the-counter painkillers. However, I was in such agony that I had to lie down and I wouldn't be able to go to school. I wouldn't be able to go out. It came to a point where I had to manage my schedule around my period. I was already tracking it via an app. I'm sure most people who have periods do this. But whenever some friends would say, hey, do you want to hang out this day or that day? I would always open the app to check if I would be on my period or not. And if I was, I knew that I would not be able to move. So I had to decline. I had to decline invitations. I had to just once a month have a weekend just to heal. Not even to heal, just to survive. I would sometimes just bend over in pain just because a cramp would literally make me double up. I would stop to breathe because the pain would just rip through me from my abdomen to my extremities. When I have my period, which by the way is very heavy, and I will talk about this in a moment, I can feel that my arms and my legs are numb and sore and heavy. It's like there is a layer of lead beneath my skin. It is hard, it is cold, it is metallic, and it is painful. Of course, I also had to deal with not just the pain, but the inconvenience of the bleeds. I would get dizzy. I constantly ran out of breath. And I thought this was perhaps because I didn't do exercise. Because I ran out of breath. Because I didn't do exercise. Because I ran out of breath. Turns out, a few years later, I discovered that I was quite severely anemic. So there's that. Bleeding through my pads, I couldn't even wear tampons because they wouldn't hold. So why would I use a tampon if I might as well use a heavy duty pad? So I managed. I would put towels over my sheets. I would wear dark colors. I would double up the pads. Even if I did that, it would sometimes just... I would bleed through everything. It didn't matter if I was out having fun. It didn't matter if I was at school. It didn't matter if I was at work. Once I bled through everything while I was working. And I was so mortified. And I was using a heavy duty pad. And I had just changed. Within less than an hour, I had already used up the whole pad and bled through everything within the hour. So I just couldn't do anything. Not only the pain was so debilitating, but I could not go out because I would be so afraid of staining everything. Through all of this, I was never diagnosed. I would talk to doctors. I would talk to nurses. I would talk to OBGYNs. I would talk to primary care doctors, to family doctors, to anyone who would listen to me. I would say, hey, I think there is something wrong with me. And whenever I said that, they would say, no, periods hurt. It happens. And whenever I said, hey, I bleed a lot, they would say, yeah, some people just bleed a lot. And even if I told them, nobody believed me. Because you cannot quantify pain. Even if I said, I'm in a pain scale of 8, they would say, what do you know about 8s? You know nothing. You are abled. You're a physically abled young woman. So how could you ever know what an 8 is? Or I would say, hey, I am bleeding a lot. It's like, yeah, but how much? And I would never be able to tell them exactly how many milliliters I was bleeding until last year. Last year, when everything happened, lockdown, telework, I took the opportunity to use a menstrual cup. I thought a menstrual cup at least will give me information. They do say that we bleed a lot less than we think we do. So I thought maybe I am deluded. Maybe I am exaggerating. Maybe my pain isn't as bad as I think it is. Maybe I don't bleed as much as I think I do. So I used the cup. I bought a 30 milliliter cup first because it was the small size that was recommended for people who haven't given birth yet. And I thought, okay, that's me. I thought perhaps I was using it wrong because it just kept overflowing. I would put it on and within the hour, everything would be soaked. I thought maybe I'm using it wrong. So I bought a bigger one. I bought a 40 millimeter cup. Same thing happened. Using the cup takes a bit of trial and error, getting used to putting it in, putting it out, making sure that it's sealed, making sure that it's in the correct position, not too high up, not too low. So it took me a few cycles to get used to it. So now that I'm a pro at using the menstrual cup, I was able to learn that I need to change it every 2 hours. On days 1, 2, and 3. Days 4 and 5 are usually lighter. So now I was able to exactly count how many millimeters I was bleeding. I have had to get iron infusions and injections, and I've taken iron pills and medicine. And as a matter of fact, later today I'm going to the doctors to check my iron levels again. When I was able to get this information, when I was able to finally tell my doctor, hey, I bleed this much every month, they finally took me seriously. And they brought me in for an ultrasound, and they saw it in an ultrasound. My shape was slightly off, and he said, yeah, I can see the endometriosis. To seal the deal, they did a blood test which revealed that my CA 1 to 5 levels were elevated. And that basically, for me, sealed the deal, and I was given a diagnosis of endometriosis. And when they told me, I burst out crying. Not because I was sad, which I was, because nobody likes to be told, hey, you have an incurable condition, chronic pain condition, but because finally I was able to name my pain. Since then, I have not once questioned my body and my pain. Before, I was always thinking, perhaps this is in my head. Maybe I just need to push through it. Maybe I am exaggerating. Maybe I am being dramatic. I wasn't. And I wish all of those doctors back in the day had believed me. All in all, it's been 20 years of my life that I have been questioning my own sanity, questioning my body. Having your body be broken and not being able to name that diagnosis is scary, is invalidating, and it makes you question whether your pain is real. So now my experience with the pain that I still have has changed incredibly. I don't question the pain. I am able to accept it. I am able to feel the pain and not feel guilty about being in pain. Because here's the thing. When you have a condition and nobody believes you, it doesn't just... The pain is still there. The discomfort is still there. The questions are still there. But every time somebody doesn't believe you, every time that somebody who's supposed to help you doesn't help you, it chips away at your spirit. And that is something that I have no words for. Other than, if you are in this situation, if my story resonates with yours, I believe you. And it sucks to be in a position where you are so vulnerable and you're not believed. I believe you. And maybe not all doctors and maybe not all countries will accept this form of diagnosis that I had. A weird shape of a uterus and having those CA 1 to 5 levels elevated. Maybe this will not be valid for some other people or for someone else's circumstances. But maybe it will help. Maybe it will allow you to have this information and to tell the doctors what to look for and what tests to make. Because I didn't know. No one had told me. Everyone had said, tell your doctor. They will believe you. Nobody did. So maybe if you have this information, maybe you will be able to get a diagnosis or to have someone to acknowledge your body as it is. Just by the way, I have been given many ultrasounds, many intravaginal ultrasounds. Many doctors have looked at my scans, and only one was able to find it because he was looking for it. So endometriosis in my case was an illness that could have been found had someone looked for it, had someone believed me. Whoever you are who is perhaps watching, perhaps wanting a solution, I hope that my story, my journey has helped you or will help you or will give you some ideas. Walking this journey alone is scary and it's lonely. There is this whole community of people who share the same symptoms, who share the same disease, and we can help each other. So this is my contribution to my story with endometriosis. And I hope that if you're going through this, that you will find someone who will believe you. It took me 20 years, and I really hope that for the people after me, it will not take this long. Not even 10 years. I want this to be diagnosed quicker because it was hell. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you soon.